Hey there, author and attorney Kelly O'Connell with Knockout Podcasts. Hope you're having a good day. Thanks for joining me. Today's topic, the ridiculousness of how the Democrats have suddenly turned over a new leaf. I mean, radically changed. And this is like some guy dating a woman or a woman dating a guy and finding out when they go to kiss them or go to bed, whatever, that the person's the same gender that they are. And not saying there's anything wrong with that, by the way, but this idea that the Democrats suddenly show a brand new identity, which is to not care about Americans, male or female, to not care about leaving people behind, just don't give a complete poop about all of these feminists that they've created in Afghanistan, where obviously the history of the country had no feminism in it. And all of these women are going to be at risk of being outed and killed, and they're either going to be driven back into houses or try to escape the country, or they're going to end up dead. And I mean, you know how addictive feminism is. And these women have bought into it lock, stock, and two smoking barrels, so we'll see what happens with that. But overall, the Democrats have traded their ideals. They presented themselves as kind of like atheist Jesus, you know, care about the poor, care about the sick, care about the lame, the foreigners. They're going to feed people, they're going to house people. They're going to bring people in from other countries without asking them a question because they feel sorry for him, and they're going to put him in housing, etc. And all of a sudden, we're not doing that in Afghanistan because we want to get out of there as fast as we can. For some unknown reason, even though we've got the military and the interest in doing it, the president doesn't. President doesn't give a fig, doesn't give a fiddler's damn what happens to these people. Now, the Democrats themselves don't seem to be scrambling or worried about this, even though the entire world is lashing out at it. So you're taking a carefully put together brand like Disney, put together for 50 or 100 years, and then all of a sudden it's like one day you wake up and Disney is advertising itself as a porn network. So all the goodwill, all the effort that you put into this, undoubtedly all of the policies that they never wanted to support deep down to pretend that they cared about other people are gone. So the title of the essay is Biden's Absurdly Cruel Afghan Exit Exposes the Left's Mountain of Lies. And you're watching the imminent collapse of America's liberal monolith. So it's an absurd failure. Democrats can't feel the slightest bit good about this. No self-respect or ease about Biden leaving Afghanistan the way he's doing. It's a shocking rejection of American values, don't you think? And it has seemed to overwhelm any normal response, which should be to get rid of mind-addled, brain-destroyed Biden and his terrible team. The GOP must get Joe out of there with the help of the Democrats. And if you've noticed, when a Democrat screws up, there's never any call within the party to get rid of the person unless they're cancerous, unless they're radioactive like Cuomo. You couldn't keep Cuomo in there anymore because he asked for an investigation from his own attorney general, who's a Democrat, and it came out and totally destroyed him, so he had to leave. But what's really bubbling beneath the surface here of this astonishing event is the absolute collapse, morally and ideologically, of one of America's two historic parties. Democrats, Republicans, they stand for something. The Republicans stand for natural law, for rights, right to work, capitalism, government staying out of your business, that type of thing, free speech. The Democratic Party has been slowly evolving, which the Republican Party has evolved too. But the Democratic Party has evolved into a different animal, which I find absolutely astounding. what I find astounding about it is it would be like Bolt, Usain Bolt or whatever that guy's name is, the sprinter, going out and trying to open a cooking school and pretending that his whole life his best skill has been cooking, even though he set the world record in the 100-yard dash. So it's very strange, very, very weird what's going on. And so I don't think the party can survive this, even though Democrats and liberals in general act like they know everything, act like they've got the blueprint to the universe. They act like all of their ideas and statements are strategic and they can't lose. And that's one of the reasons they laugh at people who are not liberal, like libertarians and Republicans. So I don't really think that they can survive this, but shockwaves of the abandonment of virtue will be felt for decades. You can't just get up and abandon everybody, even your own people, and pretend you're doing the right thing like Biden is doing. And he's too old. But you take somebody who's old, they're used up, and underneath that you've got a history of bad decisions, terrible judgment. What do you think's going to happen? So the Democrats' fake ideals that they never supported in the first place are lying in ashes. But by deciding to abandon Afghanistan at the last moment, which they apparently did because they didn't do any of the stuff that they could have taken care of. There's one of the biggest lies of this thing is Biden acts like it was one or the other. You could either have a very slow, agonizing departure that took years and many American lives, or you could leave in the middle of the night. And I mean, it's like somebody leaving their spouse. You could tell them. You could try to work stuff out to make it more fair, even though you're leaving, or you could just disappear. And that's Joe Biden's dream for some reason. I don't know why. Why would he want to do something that completely trashed his reputation? Why would he want to do something that trashed America's reputation? We've burned bridges with NATO because we never told him our plans. We didn't tell the new commander of Bagram Air Force Base we were leaving. So the notion Dems are more loving, caring of the downtrodden, defenders of the weak and foreigners, etc. is now a punchline to a hilarious series of jokes. Where's Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's bombastic, self-righteous feminism? And you know, the problem with the way these people have approached stuff is they present themselves as the answer. They don't have the answer with them in their minds. They haven't figured it out. They haven't got it from history or from God or from some great philosopher. They represent it themselves. And so you can change positions like this, but it is extremely destructive. One day you're totally pro-feminist, and the next day you don't care. Now, all past Democrat conceits lie in tatters in Kabul, like bringing a Corvette into the auto shop to switch out engines with an old VW Bug. It doesn't make sense. How did the Democrats let this happen? What makes them think it's going to make them stronger at the polls? They're going to make them more likely to succeed. In fact, the deeper the Democrats got into governing in power, even though they had a very, very, very tiny majority, they didn't have a majority in the Senate. They had to bring in Kamala for a vote. And in the House, I think, what do they have, 4 or 5, 6 votes over the Republicans, but they act like they've got an absolute total majority and a mandate. And so it's got people baffled, but it's also made it difficult to get their own party to go with them. Well, one party advantage, or one person, one vote advantage in the minds of the Democrats becomes a massive mandate. Because why? They're Marxist and all they care about is power. And you might say, Kelly, I don't reject that. That sounds so old-fashioned. Those days are over. They're not. Unfortunately, the Democrats keep dragging them forward, even though they're failed ideas. So Democrats, like all good leftists, only ever cared about aggregating power, building power. All else is propaganda and theater, like Biden claiming his top goal was beating COVID while flooding America with millions of virus cases from across the border. Again, if this is the party of feminism, why would they leave all these feminist women over in Afghanistan? Here's another question. Why is every person who gets to the border considered to be good enough to be brought in the country, even if they're criminals, even if they're felons? Well, I don't know, but wouldn't it be better to get, Afghani feminists over here who've at least maybe worked with the United States? The reality about Democrats, the sad truth, Democrats, leftists, socialists, progressives, liberals, communists, Marxists, is now utterly exposed for the entire globe. Nobody in the Democratic Party has the tiniest interest in standing up or pushing down a mentally degraded Joe Biden as he sticks to his guns over Kabul. We're going to be out by the 31st. This is like being in a car, an overcrowded car, and the driver is drunk and they won't pull over and nobody will grab the wheel from him. Even though fixing the situation would be straightforward and frankly probably fairly easy for the U.S. Army, it would take some fighting, it would take some hard work to secure Kabul and get everybody out and execute an orderly, safe, and life-saving transition. Biden's not interested. His decision-making, therefore, is described by ex-British Prime Minister Tony Blair as imbecilic. The world now identifies Joe as an irredeemable moron. In other words, nothing was gained but everything was lost by the Kabul disaster. What did we gain by pulling out early? Or what did we gain by pulling out and not protecting our allies? What did we gain by leaving all the weapons? Tell me, what did we gain? So the Democrats are supposed to be so strategic. They're smarter than Republicans. They outtink Republicans. So what part of giving away all your weapons is outthinking? What part of your goal in being smarter than other people is giving away your military base to fly out on and then having to go use public transportation, to use the public airport with one runway when you had, what did they have, 4 runways at Kabul? Or, not Kabul, but the name of the airport that they built there, the Air Force base. It's just, it's so disappointing. It's heartbreaking to have to describe this stuff, but it's like have you ever had a sense there's a bad hoax, there's a hex on you, bad luck, somebody put a curse on you? That's what it feels like here. It's like we're going towards disaster and nobody can stop it. But my question is, why can't we stop Joe? Why can't anybody stand up and say you're doing this the wrong way? Why can't he be pushed out of authority over at least just Afghanistan when he's mentally unhinged? The world now identifies him as just stupid, and the old Democratic Party has vanished, aborted by a mentally infirm usurper who can't finish a sentence, but lords his power over us all. And, like all other Marxists, the Democrats are a group who, under a canopy of lies, use human victims to amass power, and then they throw those victims away. How about all the women that they helped get abortions, they fought to get abortions? What happened to those women? What happened to the kids? I mean, they're dead, right? There's only victims in abortion, and that's been the Democrats' top policy for decades. Consider doomed Afghani feminists now. Does anyone really believe totally exposed Kabul feminists now respect Queen Harridan, Termagant, Harpy, Nancy Pelosi, or Uncle Sam? Everyone realizes since used up Joe Biden can't make his own decisions, the entire Democratic Party decided how this calamity would go down, right? It had to be a group decision. For an entire generation, Afghani women were raised under the shibboleth, the sign of feminism, believing women and men equal to achieve anything they damned well pleased. Well, that's been shattered into a billion pieces. And now these leftist Middle Eastern ladies find that atheistic women's rights, abstracted out of somebody else's culture and history, don't stand up to a hill of beans underneath Sharia law. So now they have to skulk back to the shadows, thanks Nancy. And I do want to point out that although people act like women's rights and feminism are an obvious fact out of nature, they come out of the Christian religion, specifically tied to a letter written by John Locke, letter that he famously put out there, in which philosophers and authors went back and studied and found a lot in there. Letter of Toleration. But thanks, Nancy. Those women really appreciate it. Now, lessons from the folly of Kabul. I'm going to start calling it the folly of Kabul because it was so stupid. Just so that we're all clear, the Democratic Party destroyed itself in Afghanistan, didn't it? Biden destroyed his party, yet merely by exposing what leftism has always believed at heart. Democrats may well be done as a unifying movement as well after the dust settles, and I really mean liberals. They have no moral authority remaining. They can't look down on anybody else, especially Donald Trump. And it is time to call out Dems. It's time to call out Dems repeatedly until they fess up as to who they really are. Stop pretending you're God on earth. Stop pretending you're Jesus. Stop pretending that you know everything. Stop pretending you care about other people who can't help you. Just stop. Let's just be honest. You're about power. That's all it is. Now let's have a fight about power. It's also time to rehabilitate Donald Trump. We must confront these sick and twisted lefties. Okay. The end. Confront evil, fight for good. Don't be afraid now to call out leftists to explain and defend all their haughty and typically ill-defined and never proved ideas. Rub it in, as a matter of fact, like they do. I've had friends who have been rubbing in Joe Biden's win and Trump's loss for a year now, 9 months, whatever it's been. Conservatives and libertarians must fight to regain control of our institutions because America is on the very verge of collapse. Dems have destroyed the border, immigration, health care with COVID, the dollar, bringing in inflation, destabilizing the globe, shrinking the economy and ruining it through deficit spending. And we can fight. We've got to fight. The entire world needs us, obviously. Look at what's going on. The war with liberalism just entered its endgame. Thank you. And here's some weird news for you. Okay, this is a very weird story. A man seen hanging from Utah amusement park ride dies after falling nearly 50 feet to ground. And this is August 17th, 2021. The rider at Sky Ride at Lagoon Amusement Park last Saturday, and some people were coming down this ride. It looks like a ski lift, and they're kind of filming everything, and all of a sudden you see this guy come into the picture. He's on a chairlift. He's got his hands up holding the chairlift bars, just hanging from this thing, and he's about 50 feet off the ground. He doesn't seem disturbed. He's not yelling, he's not saying help me or anything, and then he goes out of the picture, and then the story cuts to the fact that he fell 50 feet and died. Now, from what I had seen, it was just my guess, and it was also the guess of the people on the video who commented. He just seemed like he was suicidal. I mean, why would you be hanging from a chair backwards? Not like you had fallen out, and all of a sudden you fall and you're dead. And he had even gone over a water a fountain, so he could have fallen into the water. That may not have saved him, but it would at least have been a shot. So anyway, maybe they'll never tell. Hey, and have you noticed that looking into other deaths, their families are now making the papers not tell the cause of death, which used to be a right. It used to be a right, and it was no doubt related to public health as to how people died. So, but this guy definitely died by falling. All right, a more light-hearted story. Police called to noise complaint, find cat home alone blasting music, July 28th, 2021. And cops were called in Spain over an extremely loud noise coming out of this building, and so they came, they knocked, nobody came to the door, and they finally got it open and went inside, and there was, in the middle of the night, by the way, there was a cat in there, and he was a cat. His owners were away, and so they story says, the cat was left in the house since he has the habit of turning up on the musical equipment with the paw and moving the volume wheel. And the unnamed person who lives in Rondas de Fontinas returned home to take care of the curious kitty. So, and one more story. They keep finding shoes with feet in them. And since 2007, nearly 24 human feet have been found in sneakers completely unattached to bodies on the coast of the Salish Sea in the U.S. and Canada, or what I would say is the Pacific Ocean. And the most recent one in Everest, Washington, 2019. And so people are speculating if it was murder, what kind of disaster happened, and so what happens is people die through accident or through suicide, and their bodies fall into the ocean and they sink down to the bottom of the ocean, and then the scavengers come, and they call them lazy feeders, sea scavengers. They prefer to tackle the softer parts of the body than the tougher bits, and so they chew on, various parts until the kind of, I guess, munch through the bone, and then the shoes, because they have rubber on them, possibly they float up to the top and then got washed in. But it's pretty gruesome. But I've seen a number of these. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Let's get serious here. We can't have a country that runs like Biden is running America in Afghanistan right now. We've got to take control of these institutions back. We've got to get conservatives and libertarians in there. That's who were the people that started this country. Don't forget that. Leftism, Marxism, which didn't exist back then, it's just destructive. It destroys people to try to get a hold of power. Anyway, Kelly O'Connell, please give me a thumbs up and also join the channel so we can get the word out. Have a great day. I am delighted that you agreed to spend some time with me, and I hope you have a good one. I'll meet you back here tomorrow. Ciao.